So it seems like they're almost lying to be caught, as you said, to surface and shock everyone into just kind of submitting. Your comments?
Well, this will be kind of very interesting what you've been talking about with the food additives and stuff when we get into the nature of reality and the way it's manipulated. But in terms of the laboratory mouse or the laboratory rat, funnily enough, in my talks I do a section about that. And it's very clear that when you put it all together, Alex, when you put all the shocks, all the constant instructions, all the do's and don'ts, all the punishments for increasingly fine detail little things like I talked about last time, people being fined in Britain for feeding the birds, people being fined for putting a card in their car saying it's for sale when it's their own car. What it is like is exactly like the laboratory rat, because of course when they're doing those experiments, when the rat goes down certain channels, it gets a shock. After a few shocks, it doesn't go down that channel anymore, and you can take the shock equipment away, it still won't go down that channel because it's been programmed not to do that by the carrot and the stick. It's okay going down this one, we'll leave you alone. Go down that one, there's a problem. Now, take this on a mass scale. All the things that are being thrown at us, and that's what they're doing. They are manipulating so many shocks on the mind, creating so many fears, so many traumas, that we become subservient. And this, and basically anything for a quiet life. Yes, sir. No, sir. Just save me.
Well, here's an example. In England and the U.S., if an adult is at the park, and I, before I was single, went for walks at the park all the time or jogs, the police come over and ask, are you a pedophile? I mean, how bizarre. Or Steve Watson out for a date in London, they come over and put him in a terror database. Clean-cut, nice-looking guy with a master's degree in political science with a great-looking girlfriend. Everybody I know in England has had this happen to them. It happened to me when I was there, where they put me in a terror database. They're letting you know you're a slave.
Exactly. And, it's something that is very important for people to appreciate, that we've been bombarded with shocks on purpose so that we will become subservient and we will give our power away. And I tell a wonderful example, which really was encapsulated in one headline. When the taser started coming out, when we started giving, I'm not saying all police are like this,
but now they've gotten us conditioned to daily deaths.
Yeah, I've met a few policemen who, if they had a brain cell, it would die of loneliness, and we're giving these people 55,000 volts of electricity to shoot at people. Now, there was an article in the newspaper which was looking at this when they first came in, and the headline encapsulated exactly what we're talking about here. It said, "I'll do anything you say, officer, just don't use that thing on me." And that encapsulates this whole mind game.
It's a cattle prod. It's a cattle prod for cows in the slaughterhouse. It's a cattle prod. Go ahead.
Exactly. But what we mustn't do, and when we get into the nature of reality and the true nature of who we are, as opposed to the false identity we've been sold from cradle to grave, then you lose the fear and you lose this subservience. Someone with an expanded consciousness who looks in the mirror and realizes that what they're looking at is what they're experiencing, not who they are, they don't fall for this stuff. And that's why this awakening, and it's an awakening from an hypnotic trance, that's what it is.
Yes.
Calling it an awakening is a very good term, because that's what it is. It's like someone in a hypnotist stage show having the fingers clicked and they wake up from the trance. Most of humanity is in an absolute hypnotic trance that is they're put in from cradle to grave by constant repetition of a fake reality. And when we wake up from this, then we will not be subservient. Then we will cross the street
and
start to engage with this.
And by the way, the first step is the biggest. Once you realize you are in a hypnotic state with your literal brainwaves from the television, the average American now, the average Brit, they've done studies. We posted them on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. I've also seen them on DavidIcke.com. That people are now in a lower brainwave state than they were just 30, 40 years ago. People are in a sleep state. They are in a glazed-eyed state. And what David is telling you is absolutely true.
Yeah, well, when you start to look at what reality is, then this conspiracy takes on a whole new depth, and indeed you get closer and closer to the foundations of it, because the foundations of it, it plays out as banking scams, it plays out as political scams, it plays out as engineered wars, all of which are absolutely vital for us to know about, because you can't cease to be a slave until you realize you are one and what the game is. So that's vital information. But alongside that, we need to understand not just what the prison looks like, but how we open the door, indeed stop the door finally slamming shut. And to do that, we need to understand reality, because the core people, behind the people, the shadow people as I call them, they understand the nature of the reality that we're experiencing, and they have worked tirelessly and endlessly to manipulate the structure of society and the information allowed to circulate in society to keep the people in total ignorance of the very reality that they're experiencing. And how can we possibly be free in a world that we don't even know what the world is? We don't know who we are. We don't know the nature of the reality we're experiencing. If we don't start to get an understanding of that information, then again, just like the banking system, we're pawns in a game where someone else knows the rules and we don't. And that's why this whole area of who are we? Where are we? What is the nature of reality is so absolutely vital, because it offers the key to the door. And that's why it's my prime focus now, because this is where the key is held to open the door to this prison cell that they're building by the minute.
Now, to simplify that, they are trying to shock us now and intensify the amount of outrageousness. You know, when they say Cadbury cakes filled with melamine are good for you, they're doing that because some even greater horrors and intensification of the tyranny is coming, and they're trying to acclimate the mind to where we're so shocked that we're basically numb. And so what you're saying, and you're absolutely right from my perspective and my life in studying history and philosophy and sociology, and what's happening is once you realize you're being manipulated, once you understand you're being programmed, once you understand that's going on, then you start looking, and then it's a progression of levels as you become more and more aware, and that's what the enemy is in a race to block and stop.
Yeah, when you expand your consciousness, your energy field starts to vibrate quicker and quicker and quicker. As you close your consciousness and you become a prisoner almost entirely of the five senses in how you see reality, you see possibility, and the five senses decode reality in sense of limitation. I can't. The five senses are telling us all the time how powerless we are, how many things we can't do, how limited we are. As you expand your consciousness, that dramatically changes. So if you can hold people in a low vibrational state, because everything is vibrating energy in different forms, then you are literally, we use these truisms as throwaway lines in our everyday life. You are literally closing the minds of people. So anything that will slow us down vibrationally and fear is the biggest one, will make us more and more closed-minded and have a more and more limited view of possibility in our own selves. And we're being bombarded to that end by food additives, by additives in drink and water, by all the shocks that you're talking about, by all the things that create the laboratory rat scenario. And of course, when we're in fear and when we're in stress, what do we say? Oh, I feel so heavy, I feel so tight. Why? Because you're going into a lower and lower vibrational state. And the more you do, the more the five senses dominate your reality. And where do the five senses look, Alex, to get a fix on who we are and what's going on in the world? They look outside into this world.
And then Madison Avenue tells the women they're ugly and inadequate, so they get even more depressed and don't realize what incredible dynamic creatures they are. Men think they need to be manly and start fights and only like football and not be good parents. All of it is to hamstring us. But let me throw out a historical example of horizons and expanding your vision. The elite, of course, have suppressed a lot of history. but they know that we are, quote, made in the image of the Creator. We are great creators. We can build things. And that's why a science fiction writer like Jules Verne or H.G. Wells or any of these people, they could expand just their imagination, and almost everything they wrote about and talked about has now manifest, because what the mind imagines in steps, it is able to later construct through this group community, this mass organism that we know of as humanity. So that's why the elite know to stop a true renaissance to the stars, they have to make us petty, small, hateful, to turn against each other, and fearful of taking action.